Hi everybody, I'm Alison Kent, the owner and creator of The Home Kitchen, site for musings about food and gatherings, artisanal kitchen product and kitchen design. And we're doing lives today for International Women's Day. We're chatting with 9 amazing women. And I am bringing in, if I can type, if I can see, there they are. Cenami, who works, she is the chef at the wine cuisine chef. I didn't know wine cuisine was a thing, first of all, but the wine cuisine chef for La Crema, which is in Sonoma, and part of the Jackson wine family with like a billion vineyards.
A billion vineyards. I love that.
A billion. There's a whole lot of them. No, there's 40. And the reason that we're chatting is because they are super forward, like women driven, women led throughout and global doing that. So that's really quite impressive. And how perfect for International Women's Day.
Hi, Alison. Thank you so
Hi,
much
Tracey.
for having me today. Happy Women's Day.
I have to try not to knock it down
is to pour
and I will
a glass and have a sip. So we're gonna cheers.
Cheers to that. Which one are you pouring?
I just poured the La Crema Sonoma Coast Chardonnay.
Okay. Yes. Oh my goodness. How fun is your job?
Hold on, you went away for a second. Now you're back. So re-ask me that.
Okay, I said, how fun is your job? You get to taste wine and eat food and cook and
be jealous. Take a moment and be jealous.
Yeah, we're jealous. We're jealous. So wine country cuisine. So you started, maybe give us a minute of like your journey and how you ended up with La Crema and the Jackson
I've had
family.
a long culinary journey. I was fortunate enough to know what I wanted to do at a pretty young age. So I started very early and just made my way through kitchens all over and ended up in wine country. So naturally working at a winery. I actually didn't work at a winery for the first 10 years. I lived in wine country. But it makes sense that I would eventually get there. Been working for Jackson Family Wines for about 14 years now. I know. And that I say that more so because that is a really long life for a chef to be in one place. It's a very long tenure, but I like to share that because it's also an attribute to what I get to do every day. That I'm never bored, I'm always challenged, and I'm well respected and appreciated. And so there's no reason for me to go anywhere else. I've been very happy.
Well, you wouldn't. I mean, if you're being treated like you're part of the family, you're being treated with the respect that, every chef wants to have some creative input. They want to be, it's a culinary art. It's not just cooking, it is an art. And if you don't get to like exercise some of that where you are and be respected for your visions, then you wouldn't stay. So obviously it fits.
Well, and I'm not gonna lie.
Like as long as like my youngest child, like that's how long you've been there. And this is really good. I will confess that
that doesn't even need to be a confession. I'd be upset if you weren't pre-sipping. That's what it's there for. Enjoy.
And I chatted with one of your colleagues from the Kendall-Jackson Winery at 11 a.m. and we're like, in Europe, you wouldn't even hesitate to be drinking wine at 11 a.m. Well, now it's 2 o'clock.
And we're in wine country, so there's never any judgment about when you drink wine here. It's more judgment about what you're drinking.
I love it. When I think of North American wine, even though we definitely have a wine region here near Vancouver, I just think of California. Like, is there any competition in North America to California wines? Really?
I mean, I'm biased, right? Because I live here and work here and enjoy.
You're biased. You're allowed to be. This is your little segment.
What we get to do here in wine country. But we've also got wineries in the Central Valley of California that are amazing, and up in Oregon. So I would say this coast is a good coast to be up this whole coast of the U.S. is a pretty great spot for growing grapes. And we tend to focus on, especially at La Crema, but we like a lot of coastal climate for our grapes. Cool coastal climates really we feel produces some absolutely amazing grapes and in turn wine. So that's a motto that we stay in line with pretty well.
and the abundance of food, because California is also
Yes.
very agricultural, and being on the Pacific coast and the oyster farms. I know there's one quite close
Yeah.
to the valley there, and just the abundance of opportunity for food and combining that with the wine. And as a chef,
It's
that must be
Mecca,
insanely
honestly. I mean, we
exciting.
really are. We're this county. It's a farm town, so think about what that means as far as like exactly like you said, the agriculture. So we get the best produce, we get the best homemade artisan cheeses. We the dairy. We're less than an hour from the coast. We're surrounded by ranchers, and so we really have. We like to say we have everything but excuses here because there's so much amazing food and wine at our disposal that if we can't please people, then we're not doing something right, because we have it all. We just need to, it's just a matter of getting it to the guest.
And how did you might not have gone this far back, but like there's obviously some very amazing restaurants also close to all the wineries. And so is it a chicken and the egg thing? Like there was already vineyards, and so the wine started to elevate to the level of the wines that were being made, or was there already food there and the wines were kind of elevating themselves to up to where the food was kind of
helped
going?
each other for sure.
As a
When I
chef,
moved
do you have a
here,
thought?
20 something years ago, there was definitely a lot less restaurants. I mean, we have a ton more restaurants now. So I think the beauty and the wine for sure brought people here. And for a long time, we're about an hour away from Napa, but it's over a big hill, and Napa has just been known for years. So I think it was about Sonoma County really making a name for themselves and showing themselves as just as important and exciting of a place to be for wine. And we've certainly done that. And so I think that naturally hand in hand with that goes good food.
Well, I can't wait to get back down. I used to drive down every year, and it's been a bit since this COVID thing came up. But as the chef and working with all the wines, I know La Crema specializes in
Chardonnay
these
and
two in
Pinot Noir
particular,
is what La
correct?
Crema really focuses on: cool climate, Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. And we're just so proud of that. We've ventured into other wines in the past few years, and they're equally as delicious. We make some bubbles. We make a Sauvignon Blanc that just came out the past, I want to say 2 years ago. So, we do other things as well. But this is, the Chardonnay and the Pinot Noir is really where our bread and butter is. And it's what we're most known for. And so and we really just use spectacular grapes from vineyards that just, what you end up with in the bottle is so amazing. And as a chef, it's really awesome because these wines are so delicious, but they're really food friendly as well. So that's really, my favorite part is that I'm not trying to like make something taste better. I don't have to. They're awesome and delicious. So really, I'm just trying to, when I cook, I'm trying to make dishes that highlight what's already happening, this wonderful flavor in the bottle.
Well, cheers to
I need to
Noir
catch up.
too.
I still got my Chardonnay. I'm
we've
going
got all
back
the
to the
fifths
kitchen
here.
after I'm done with it, so.
Oh yeah, no, that's here still too. We're still good. So when you're working with pairings in the restaurant, you're working with the wines that you have available and everything else. Are you starting with the wine, or are you starting with the food?
Yeah.
Because you have so much amazing food, and this might be in season and that might be in season, and then you're kind of working back, or you're starting
So
with the wine.
I always start with the wine. And I like to say, like, I can't change what's in the bottle, and nor do I want to, right? We've got fantastic winemakers, and which, by the way, I wrote this down. I just want to tell you, 61% of our winemakers in the company are women. Isn't that awesome? I know. I saw that statistic for today, and I'm like, wow. Like, I knew we had a lot of women winemakers in the company. I digress for a second, but like 61%, that made me feel very like I stood up a little taller when I heard that. I was like, yeah, good for us. Anyway.
I think it matters because women I don't know, not to generalize women, but like when things need to be creative, we just always are like creative solution, problem solving kind of humans. And I think it goes well towards extending towards something as complex as wine. Yeah. Like wine is super complex. I had no idea. And then I was doing research for some of these interviews today, and I was like, not only does the winemaker have to understand the soil and the climate and how the climate changes
Mother Nature.
Every hour, I think she said earlier today.
Yeah.
Every hour. Yeah. I'm like, oh my God. I was like,
there's spring and fall. I don't know. And she's like, every
Yeah.
hour we are double checking like what's happening outside, what the temperature's doing. It was mind blowing what goes into, and then we just go and pick up
Yeah.
a bottle and think, oh, wine.
No.
No.
Well, and the same thing from the
No.
chef's perspective, you were asking, where do I start? I mean, it's the same thing, right? Like, our winemakers are artists, right? And they put all this time and effort and love into what ends up in the end result. And so going back to, I don't want to change what's already, as I point my bottle right here, I don't want to change what's in this bottle of wine, right? Because this is delicious and wonderful. So I always start with that. And then the next thing I take into mind is certainly seasonality. It's how we cook here. It's how we eat here. It's just, people talk about farm to table. It's been around now, right? On the forefront of people's messaging and how they speak of farm to table. And for us, that's just how we cook. Like, to label it farm to table is weird because we've always done that. And it's what we do. Yeah. So for us, it's not farm to table. It's just how we cook. And it's just the way we cook.
I was in Vegas last year. Or the year before. I can't remember, but I was like, oh, well, looking around, I always go to the bar and I'll ask them, where do the locals eat? Where do you eat? Where do you go? And I kept saying, I want to eat like farm to table. And it wasn't until I left Vegas, because it was my first time there, I have no idea, right?
No.
I leave and there's no
the desert.
It's just desert forever.
Yeah,
I'm
not sure they know. I'm not sure the concept
in the
is
menu
one that
like,
resonates with the local crowd there, but they've got other things going for them. So
they have other things. They don't care about farm to table. And it was like everything on the menu was like imported from California. I'm like, why am I even here? I'm going back to California.
Yeah. I mean, we're fortunate enough here to have so much.
It's not their
farm town. I mean, really, right outside the back door of the kitchen we've got 4 acres of culinary gardens that are just for us. So it's just very, we're really quite spoiled as far as a culinary team goes. And so it's just, we start with the wine and then we talk about seasonality. And really the motto is keeping it simple and balanced, because I'm not trying to disguise anything. I want this wine to really be the star. I'm a chef, but I'm also, I sell wine, right? I mean, I work for a winery. So in the grand scheme of the things, right? And so my job is to make sure whatever I make and put on the plate doesn't even overshadow what's in the bottle, that they're such a harmonious thing together. And also to educate people. I think you and I were chatting about this the other day, the idea behind, like, oftentimes people will sit down and they'll drink their wine, and then their food comes and they start eating their food and they kind of forget about the wine. And then the food goes away and maybe they have a sip or two, but then the food goes away and they drink the wine again. That's not how we do it. We want you to eat and drink kind of simultaneously, because that experience, especially when it's really created for that, is one that I like to call cloud party moments, right? Where hopefully you have a glass of, or you have a sip of the La Crema Chardonnay, and then you have a bite of a dish that I make, and you're like, the clouds part. And then you remember that forever. I mean, that's really the goal, right? You remember that experience. You remember what you ate. You remember what you drank, and you remember loving it so much you want to go out and tell everybody.
Well, and like what you're doing basically is creating an entire story around the wine and the food and making it all work together with your 4-acre playground in the back. By the way, I'm super jealous. Real estate in Vancouver is expensive. We get like 4 square feet here to play with a garden. But to be able to create that story that is kind of intertwining the food and the wine is what's going to make it memorable. Because if you're just slapping down food and here's whatever wine is on happy hour, it's not the same experience. And then I guess it's probably, you're not going to a vineyard.
And some people want to just come here and drink.
You're going to a vineyard to have the experience.
And sometimes we have no judgment around that too. But if you want to have that experience with the food, I mean, I feel like it gives a completely different level of appreciation and education. And honestly, everybody eats, right? We all eat meals. We all eat throughout the day. And most everybody that I know drinks wine. And so why wouldn't you naturally put those two together and make it something like really cool?
Well, and especially when you're a master of cheese.
That's such a good, that is like the icing on the cake of my job, truthfully. Oh, I love that part so much. Yeah, I'm a cheese specialist, so I get to take all these amazing, beautiful wines and then find cheeses to pair with them, and then I do homemade accompaniments to, again, right? Like, so the idea is to have a bite of the cheese and a little bit of the accompaniment and a sip of the wine, and you're like, oh, it's a memorable experience.
And I was going to make sure I had some cheese here, but it's really just the wine today. But you had some suggestions, though, for which cheeses might best pair with the Chardonnay.
So this Chardonnay, it's really cool that it's just got this really great, like I said, balance. So it's not super rich on the palate. It's got this really nice acidity on the finish. So what I love, and it's that acidity, right? It's like a little bit tangy, a little bit lemony, not so acidic that it hits you on the side of your palate too much. But it's also like, I love our winemaker. I wrote this down right here. Concentrated and juicy with a lingering finish. And that to me, like that really, I feel that way about this wine. Like I felt like that was such a great description. I'm gonna say it again, concentrated and juicy with a lingering finish. And it does that. So a cheese that I love with this, it's called Mount Tam, and it is from Sonoma County, but I think it's pretty widely available. It's a cow's milk triple cream. So if you can't find Mount Tam, go for a rich buttery brie, right? But right, those are my favorites. But the trick with a wine like this is to eat the rind. That's the first thing. Don't forget to eat the rind, because on a cheese like that, the rind is bloomy and it's almost a little mushroomy and earthy, and it's actually going to cut through some of the richness, right? When you think of the middle of a brie or a triple cream, which is, most people would arguably say that's the best part, which is great, but it's kind of one-dimensional in texture and flavor. And so that richness, I think, really is nice with this wine, because this wine doesn't come off as super rich, but just enough so it plays that up. But the acidity on the finish of this wine is bright enough that it cuts through that richness. So again, it's not one-dimensional. But that the rind will also give this kind of nice earthy, and for some reason that the rind tends to, for me, kind of bring out a little bit of oak in the wine, which I think is cool.
I always need to have the rind with the creamy cheese, because otherwise it's too much of one thing or the other. And I love that you mentioned that. So with the
Pinot cheese that I really love is called Midnight Moon from Cypress Grove Creamery. Oh my God, this cheese is so delicious. It's an aged goat Gouda. So for those of you that are like a little afraid of goat cheese, you got to try this cheese. Your life will be changed. It's aged a minimum of 6 months. And so it's not like soapy on the palate the way that like a young Chev is. It's kind of meaty and hearty, but this cheese is also really creamy and a little salty. So imagine it with this Pinot, right? You've got some great fruit happening here. Again, really wonderful balance, acidity, not super tannic. So it's going to have this like meaty, creamy decadence. Throw in a couple dried cherries with that. Ooh. Yeah, exactly.
Oh. You had me anything goat and Gouda. That sounds amazing. What is your favorite thing to cook at the winery?
It's so hard.
What's your favorite dish? It doesn't have to be the
I know
people's favorite. What's your favorite?
My favorite dishes to cook at the winery are vegetarian dishes, because we are so fortunate to have so much great produce that I just love so much. Because in my household, like I would happily eat vegetarian most of the time. If I want a steak, I got a steak. But my husband is one of those people who always thinks he has to have a protein with his meal to feel satisfied. And I think that that's a fairly common misconception for people. And so I love it when I can serve and create a totally vegetarian dish and people don't ever feel like they're missing anything. And we're able to do that because we've got so much and really interesting vegetables. It's not all that common for a chef to be introduced to something completely new when you've been in the industry as long as I have. And we have an amazing gardening team that introduces us to new produce or new varietals of things. And so I think the vegetables are my favorite things to cook.
Well, that's an extra bonus. And as I'm starting on my seeds for my garden, I'm purposely trying to find things that are not in the grocery store. Because if I can go get an orange carrot, I will go get an orange carrot. But what about a purple carrot or a black carrot? And how does that taste different? Is the texture different? And is it like going to elevate this dish or that dish or do whatever with it? And so most of the seeds I planted are like weird foods, I guess I'll call them. But it's just because nobody's really doing them, and they should be, because like you said, once you're cooking for a certain amount of time, and now my son's becoming a chef, so there's food all over the house, you can get kind of like, oh, I've seen white cauliflower forever. Well, let's try. You're lucky that you have so much to choose from there.
Very fortunate. I do have to have moments sometimes, especially in like September and October, when that's really such a beautiful time to be here. I mean, the grapes are being picked, they're being harvested. We've got, you know, it's beautiful outside. The flowers are, or the leaves are changing. And even just my drive to work, which is a 10-minute drive, part of it on a highway, but it's surrounded by vineyards. And I have to stop and think to myself, okay, like literally I'm driving to work. It smells like wine in the air because it's being made. I'm surrounded by beautiful vineyards. Like this is, I pinch me, really.
No wonder you're never leaving. And so then when you're working with the garden and with the agriculture, are you thinking of like, oh, the flavors in this would go, for example, like better with a lemon thyme instead of a normal thyme, or better with a wasabi sage or whatever? Like you're thinking kind of that way when you're doing the gardening as well?
Yes, I mean, yeah, in some
flavors,
ways.
or?
I mean, a lot of it is just we grow what is going to be most desirable of the season. And sometimes we grow things that wouldn't even be considered very wine friendly. Like we grow asparagus, and people often say like asparagus is one of the hardest foods to pair with wine. We still grow it, and it's amazing, and we find a way to pair it. We have a really, at one of our properties where you were talking earlier today, at Kendall-Jackson, we have a sensory garden, we call it. And so there's an area where, you know, there's a space where it's Pinot Noir driven, and all the plants that are planted there are geared towards kind of sensory value of Pinot Noir. Or the same with like Sauvignon Blanc, where you'll see things like lemon verbena, pomelo, Meyer lemon, you know, that kind of thing, or plums and cherries over in the Pinot Noir. So we have areas on our properties where it's about education. As far as the rest of what we grow, it's not really driven by that, because, you know, we can always manipulate what's on the plate with other flavors. So,
right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. By the time you add heat or cold and cooking style and technique and everything else, one thing.
Yeah, I mean, and you're absolutely right. I love the way that you say that too, because just the cooking style, that alone, right? If you take a piece of salmon and you poach it versus taking a piece of salmon and grilling it, right? If you poach it, it's going to go beautifully with, you know, think like a softer, more delicate flavor, maybe lemon. It's going to go great with this Chardonnay. If you grill it and have a heavier roasted pepper or something, it's going to go better with the Pinot Noir. And that's simply, accompaniments count, but how you prepare something really can point you in a direction as well. I do.
And you have
I do have a cookbook. Yes. I'm the co-author of a cookbook called Season Cookbook. Oh, I don't have one up here. Well, we can put a link up. It's seasoncookbook.com is the link. And yeah, it came out a few years ago, but you know, it's still relevant. I love it. In this book, I was just signing one for someone earlier, and I was like, God, I can't wait to cook this season. So the whole book is seasonally driven, as the title would lead you to believe. And it's just, and every recipe is paired with a different wine, which is also really fun. But it's just very much about how we cook here and recipes using things from our garden. I like to say probably 80% of the recipes are completely approachable. Maybe 20% are what I like to call aspirational, right? They might take a little bit more effort or work or time, or maybe really going to your farmer's market and seeking out an unusual ingredient. But the goal of the book was to really represent how we cook and how we eat and drink in Sonoma County, and for people to actually use it. I always say, like, I want that book dog-eared and dirty, and you know, you can put it on your coffee table if you want to. It's beautiful.
My best used books are all,
find things in there that they're going to come back to.
That's funny, because that's my approach to designing kitchens too. I want to design kitchens that you just get dirty and that you work in, and that it's like, and somebody here is saying that it's a wonderful cookbook. So I can't wait to look it up. Yeah, everything sounds pretty delicious, and I am like mentally booking my next trip down to California as we talk.
But we're open.
Although this comes out here,
we're open 7 days a week. We prefer reservations, but honestly, you can just make a reservation as you're driving in most of the time. Although in the season we do get booked. We at La Crema, we offer cheese and charcuterie platters. We're talking about maybe doing some oyster things, adding some things on. It's a beautiful property, so you can go there. It's the kind of place where you go thinking you're just going to do a tasting, and then the next thing you know, it's 3 hours later, because the wine is so good and the environment is so beautiful that you just want to hang out there. So, which is fine. Do that. And we've got beautiful, you can walk the property. I mean, it's just a really great space.
When I was talking earlier too about how, for me as a food person, how important it is to have food present when I'm tasting wine, because that for me is the journey that I'm trying to take in my mind. And if there's wine but not food, or food but not wine, it's really hard to connect it after the fact. For me, some people can remember a wine they tasted 20 years ago, and kudos to them. I can't. So if I'm tasting a wine and I'm like, I have some selections in front of me and I'm like, oh, I want that cheese with this wine, or I'm kind of craving, I'm geared toward that one. And it's just the experience of like putting it all together. Like you said originally, you're just kind of taking all the pieces, all the information, and you're putting it together, and everybody's going to see it a different way, and everybody's story in that is going to be a little bit different. But you're starting with something like, this is delicious. Okay, I'm going to confess that before I met Kendall-Jackson, Kendall, La Crema, all you people, I wasn't a Chardonnay fan, and today I'm turned right around. I'm like, Chardonnays are the best.
Allison, it means you drank the juice. We love it. You drank the juice. Cheers to that.
The juice. I'm part of the crowd now. This is like so easy and sippable, and I can see it going with some dishes, although tonight I'm not cooking.
Yeah, you had a long day. You just keep on drinking that wine. Tomorrow, keep on drinking that wine. That's what you should be doing.
By 5 o'clock, it's going to be a really sloppy interview.
But yeah, I mean, I think I love that you say that we won you over. I mean, we have, luckily, it's a really special and unique situation that we have because, you know, Jackson Family Wines, family-owned company, right? Which, by the way, the proprietor, the owner, woman. But you know, the company, it's a big company, although it's still family owned, but over 50 different wineries. And so they all have different winemakers, all with very different sensibility of what they want in the bottle. There's a lot of things that are in common, the way, you know, the sustainability and the level of quality, that's all set at a certain standard, but the rest is very much about that winemaker and their sensibilities. And so what you end up from winery to winery, and even from, you know, a La Crema, Sara Lee's to the Sonoma Coast to the Monterey, you're going to end up with different flavors in the bottle, which is very, very cool. And so if you find one that you may not like, chances are you're going to find one that you like, which we did for you today. So.
Well, today I found 4 I like. So we're all good. Yeah, it's amazing that they kind of had that perspective where they didn't try and mush it all into everybody kind of matching. It was like
most people don't know. Most people don't know.
Having different
winemakers, because people like Kendall-Jackson is the name, right? It's what we started as, and we're proud of that, right? Like, why would we want to hide that? But you know, people are like, wait, La Crema's Kendall-Jackson? We're like, well, no, La Crema isn't Kendall-Jackson. It's owned by Jackson family, but it's the easiest association for people. But people are often shocked when they hear we're the same kind of umbrella or the same family because they are such different wines. But I like that though, because people also, they know Kendall-Jackson is a brand and La Crema is a brand. So when you get to some of our other brands that are maybe not as known, when they hear that we're part of that family, we're talking about brands that people really trust, that they've drank for years. I mean, Kendall-Jackson and La Crema have been the #1 and #2 selling Chardonnay in the United States for over 20 years. And so there's something to say for that, right? Obviously, we're doing something right. We have been for a long time. And so, you know, you can trust that what we're producing, what we're putting in the bottle is really quite delicious.
Well, and that's the consistency you're talking about. You can have an individual wine, but you have a Jackson family wine of any kind, and you know there's going to be sustainability. You know that there's going to be quality and flavor. As I have learned just by experiencing 2 of the vineyards, I've already learned that. Like, I can understand why they're #1 and #2. I got spoiled today. I got to drink all the good wines.
Well, Allison, and I know that I want to make sure that here we are talking about all these wines, and everyone out there listening is, where do they get the wines, right? If here we are bragging about this delicious wine we're having. So I know there's a place locally for you in Canada that both these wines are available.
Yes, so the wines are also available in Canada, which is excellent. And they're mostly sold at the private liquor stores here. So like the one that I normally go to, it's not a BC liquor store, it's a private liquor store. And so I'm going to be bugging them tomorrow to see if they're carrying all these new favorites of mine. But private liquor stores everything wine out here, at least in BC.
So everyone listening and watching can can try these delicious wines.
And we're going to have all the links at the end of the video, as long as I still have my wits about me to press all the save the video buttons. But thank you so much for talking with me. I feel like we could talk about food and wine forever. And this is like our second chat because we hadn't met before. So we had a pre-chat. We could probably just talk for like 4 days.
Well, you know what? Let's just get some wine. We'll do that another day. I know you've done a lot of talking today. Another day, let's do that.
Okay, another day.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. And
have an
amazing International Women's Day. Cheers. I can't wait to visit.
Happy International Women's Day.
See you soon.